Hey everyone, this is Inverse Trig Functions Part 2, and this is going to help you with numbers 21 through 29 of that worksheet. I'm going to just show 4 examples and then let you try one on your own. This video will be a lot shorter than the last one that had a lot of information in it. So 21 through 29 looks like questions like this. Sine of inverse cosine of 1/2. This is a function composition. Similar to like f of g of 1, where you take 1, plug it into g, and then whatever you get, plug it into f. It's that process. So we're going to start with the inner function, which is inverse cosine of 1/2. And remember, the inverse is always asking you what angle has a cosine of 1/2. Cosine is the x value. So what angle on the unit circle has a cosine or x value of 1/2? It is right here. I'm going to use degrees because this worksheet kind of is working in all degrees. So the angle that has a cosine or an x value of 1/2 is 60 degrees. And remember, I'm choosing the one that's the closest to 0 because another option would be this one. So I'm going to just kind of norm into going into quadrant 1. And then you're bringing down the sine. So inverse cosine of 1/2 was 60 degrees, and then you're figuring out what is the sine of 60 degrees. The sine is going to be the y value at 60 degrees, which is √3/2. Okay, so that is the first example. The second example, I'm going to write arc sine cosine of 7π/4. So we're again starting with that inner expression there. Cosine of 7π/4. 7π/4 is here on the unit circle. Notice this is not inverse cosine, it's just cosine. What is the cosine there? What is the x value there? And the x value there is √2/2. So the cosine at 7π/4 is √2/2, and that's replacing what's highlighted in yellow. And then I'm going to bring down the arc sine and remind you that the arc sine is the same thing as the inverse sine. Inverse is always asking for an angle. So what angle has a sine or a y value of √2/2? What angle has a sine or y value of √2/2? And that is going to be right here at 45 degrees. Again, we're just repeating that you're norming to finding the one that's closest to 0. So the closest angle to 0 that has a y value of √2/2 would be 45 degrees. The other one is over here, and that's farther away from 0. So that's the norm or the convention of this worksheet. So final answer is 45. On number 1, the final answer was √3/2. Okay, we'll look at 2 more. So number 3, inverse tangent of sine of π/2. Okay, so we're starting with the sine of π/2. So you're finding π/2, and you're taking the sine there, or the y value, which is 1. And then inverse tangent. So again, remember, inverse is always looking for an angle. What angle has a tangent of 1? What's the formula for tangent again? y/x. So what angle on the unit circle do you have a tangent or y/x of 1? And that is going to be here, because the x and the y are the same there. So if you take that y divided by that x, they're the same thing, and you're going to get 1. So what angle has a tangent of 1? That angle would be 45 degrees. Okay, and then the last one, I wanted to show you one that was just a little bit more complicated, just so you weren't on your own for something like this. Cosine of the inverse tangent of √3. All right, so here, I think this is the challenge right here, the inverse tangent of √3. These were just those complicated examples. You're looking for its inverse tangent, so what angle has a tangent? Tangent is y/x of √3. And you're probably going to zoom in on one of those. So at 30 degrees, the y divided by the x, sorry, that's root 3 over 2, multiply by the reciprocal, and you get 1 over root 3, which you can rationalize and get root 3 over 3. So that doesn't seem right. But then when we go to 60 degrees, the y divided by the x is the same as y times that reciprocal, and you do get root 3. So the inverse tangent of root 3, what angle do you have a y over x of root 3? That's going to be 60 degrees, not this one, but this one, right? When we did that y value divided by the x value or multiplied by the reciprocal, we did end up with root 3. So that happens at 60 degrees. Then you're bringing down the cosine, and now this expression is saying to find the cosine of 60 degrees. So at 60 degrees, what is the x value there, right? The cosine is the x value. So at 60 degrees, the x value is 1/2, and that would be your final answer. I think that those are the trickiest, in my opinion, of all of these. Okay, so here's one for you to try on your own. Inverse sine of the cosine of 2 pi over 3. So take some time and see if you can figure that one out. So you'd be starting with cosine of 2 pi over 3. 2 pi over 3 is here. The cosine there is the x value, which is -1/2. Then you're bringing down the inverse sine. The inverse sine is asking what angle has a sine or a y value of -1/2. So looking the closest to 0 as possible, where do you see a y value of -1/2? That would be right here. So I would call that either -30 degrees or 330 degrees. I'm going to just look at this answer key to see if they have something they were doing there. Yeah, so they're listing it just like I did. They said either -30, because you're going 30 degrees in the clockwise or negative direction, or if you want to just call it 330, that's fine too, either one of those. All right, great job.